Alright, so from here all the way up, that's all the myometrium. Alright, so you need that, smooth muscle. That's where, that's what causes the contractions when, a woman is going through childbirth. You have all that smooth muscle contracting. Alright, so within the endometrium, you have these uterine glands that are present. So within the proliferative stage, this is right after menstruation. Pretty much the endometrium is, it's starting to rebuild itself. You have these glands. You can see they're not very active. So you have these glands that look they tend to be very straight for the most part. Alright, so you can see, so these are uterine glands. Alright, and you can notice the endometrium is not very thick. So it goes from here probably to about here where you start seeing the muscle. So it's not very thick, it's just beginning to rebuild itself. So that would be the proliferative stage. When we get to the secretory phase, that's right before menstruation. So now the uterus is pretty much preparing for pregnancy. So if the egg was fertilized, it's pretty much ready. It's starting. So you can notice your endometrium becomes much thicker. The glands become more active. They start secreting this substance, this nutritive substance that's gonna be there for the growing embryo. Alright, and the glands start to look, they're not straight anymore, so they start to look like you have these kind of crinkle fries looking glands. Alright, so notice the inside, it looks very wavy, very curly. Alright, so this is our secretory phase. So again, this is our myometrium. We have all this muscle, and notice the thickness of the endometrium. Alright, so we compare that with our proliferative phase where the glands were very straight, the endometrium was not very thick. Alright, and you have a lot more glands here, more active, secreting the substance, and much thicker. Alright, then during the menstrual phase, what happens is the endometrium starts to break up. So you have a lot of bleeding in the top portion of you have a lot of bleeding in the endometrium. The glands start to break up, and it starts to pull away from the myometrium. So a lot of this is going to be sloughed off during menstruation. Alright, so this is our myometrium here. Again, we see all that muscle. Alright, so notice you have the endometrium kind of breaking up here and pulling apart. So that's what happens during menstruation. So this would be the menstrual uterus. So you can see some parts are still a little bit thick. Over here, notice that a lot of it has broken away here from the myometrium. So this section here, very thin. Alright, so once you go through that, then it goes back to the proliferative stage where it starts to rebuild the endometrium, and it goes through the cycle again. Alright, so we move from our uterus to the cervix. So the cervix is, you're going to see a transition from the epithelium of the uterus, which is pretty much a simple cuboidal epithelium, and it moves into a stratified squamous epithelium. Alright, so let's see. Alright, so we're seeing a little bit here of the uterine gland in here. Alright, and then you're going to move through, and then you have these glands that are present as well. So these are your cervical glands. So you want to see the transition to the stratified squamous. So here we see that transition. We start seeing the stratified squamous layer here that's going to move into the vaginal canal. Alright, so once we see that, we know that that's our cervix. And these are your cervical glands. Alright, so you definitely want to see that transition. Alright, and then when we get to the vagina, you have a stratified squamous epithelium, non-keratinized, and then as it moves to the outside, it becomes keratinized. That's going to move into the similar epithelium of the skin. Alright, so we have our stratified squamous epithelium here. Alright, so notice that with the vaginal canal, there are no glands in the submucosa here. So we saw glands in our cervix. Alright, so those are the glands that are going to lubricate the vaginal canal. There are no glands in here. Alright. So pretty much all you're looking for here is your stratified squamous epithelia. You have a little muscle and connective tissue mixed in here in the submucosa, but apart from that, there's not much else that you're looking for. In the stratified squamous epithelia, some of the cells in the outer layer, tend to look a little bit thickened because they're storing glycogen. So you have some of these cells that look a little bit thicker in the outer layers. Alright, so I'll show you another slide here. See a little bit more. Okay, so here are a few of them. Alright, so if you see that, that's kind of a giveaway that that's in the vaginal canal. Alright, here's another slide. Alright, so now we see a little bit more. So notice that these cells, they're a little bit thicker, a little bit transparent. So these are storing glycogen here. Alright, so again, you have your stratified squamous epithelium. Alright, and then the last slide that we're looking at is the mammary gland. So we're going to look at it in the active and inactive stage. So this is our scanning view. Alright, so remember with these, this was an example of our apocrine glands. So these are modified sweat glands in the that's found in the breast tissue. Alright, so notice you have these glands that are scattered throughout the tissue. You have a lot of adipose tissue as well. Alright, so not much is happening here. The glands are very small. We don't see a lot of secretions here. Alright, so very small, not many glands present as we look around. So this would be in the inactive state. Alright, so you're pretty much just looking for these glands kind of scattered throughout the tissue. If you're not seeing a lot of glands, you're not seeing, and they don't look very big, then we know that's in our inactive state. In the active state, you're seeing a lot more glands, and they're going to be much larger, more active, secreting substances. So in some of the glands, you'll actually see the secretions still present in the middle of the secretory cells. Alright, so this would be in the active state. So notice we're seeing a lot more glands here scattered throughout the tissue. Again, we're seeing a lot of adipose tissue that's present within that's present between the glands. So in some of them you can see a little bit of secretions in here. Alright, so these are modified glands. These are going to be secreting or producing milk, during an